Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love the watches you see here today, everything is for sale. I can give you prices on any watch in the show today. Accessories, boxes, papers, anything you need to know, reach out to tmosso at thewatchbox.com. And we are always looking to build inventory. Sell us a watch or trade a watch. We pay cash, we pay fast, no upper limit on value paid. We will buy your entire collection. To buy, trade, or sell, reach out to me directly, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Let's jump straight in with a big piece. The one I promised you, Sky Dweller. Now, not just any Sky Dweller, but a few changes have occurred since the 2012 launch of this model. Now, initially, it was all precious metal, and it wasn't very well loomed, and there was a differential between the color of the dial and the color of the 24-hour second time zone ring. Well, in 2017, they fixed most of the problems with the watch, giving it, yes, a precious metal bezel, but construction otherwise in stainless steel. They also changed the dial, giving the watch a second time zone reference ring that was the same color as the dial, and dramatically expanding the use of lume across the dial, not just the hands, now the hour indices as well. Let's do a quick lume shot here. As you can see, Rolex Chronomat blue lume, and we have a lovely blue sunburst dial. The watch is 42 millimeters in diameter. It is all of those things that you love. Rolex, versatile, steel, and useful. It is both the GMT and an annual calendar. We'll throw it on my wrist real quick, get a sense of how it fits. It's 13.9 millimeters thick. It's 42 millimeters in diameter. And with the arrival of the Jubilee bracelet as an option for 2021, the watch really does look like a much larger Datejust, but it retains all of the underlying proportional grace of the Datejust family. And of course, with all solid center links and plenty of gaps between links, you find that the modern Super Jubilee is actually a better sports watch bracelet than the Oyster. Now, taking a quick look at the watch, it's very easy to set. It is an annual calendar. We'll zoom in a little bit, take a close look. Okay, we have 12 hours corresponding to 12 months. So if you see the 11th hour and that little red index fills the aperture outside the 11th hour, that's November 4th. It's that simple. Now, you turn the ring command bezel all the way clockwise, pop the crown out, doesn't do anything. Winds in the first position, nothing in the second. Counterclockwise, one click. Now I can adjust the calendar forward or backwards. You can see both the month and the date jumping back and forth, but the watch is still ticking. Now, one more click counterclockwise. Now I can adjust the local hour and I can adjust the date, but I can only advance it forward. Note, the watch is still ticking. Now, turn the ring command bezel all the way counterclockwise, hacking seconds is activated, and everything moves in sync. The watch has a 70-hour power reserve. It's shock resistant, water resistant to 100 meters, anti-magnetic. Again, this watch has it all. Okay, jumping from a very versatile watch to a very versatile watch that will cost you more money. This, of course, is the Patek Philippe Nautilus travel time chronograph. This is the most versatile watch that Patek Philippe makes. Originally launched in 2014, it combined everything we loved about the 5980 Nautilus Chrono with the travel time complication from the Aquanaut 5164 travel time. So you get a little wing profile on the side, as with any Nautilus, but now they comprise the pusher adjusters for the second time zone, which you can hide if you don't need it, which cleans up the dial considerably. Plenty of lume. The watch is also 120 meters water resistant. It's approximately 40.5 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel and surprisingly svelte. The watch includes integration of a flyback chronograph function, which only works if you wind the watch. And the timepiece has an automatic winding power reserve of 55 hours, caliber 28, 520, originally created for the 5960 annual calendar chronograph. It still gives us that flyback chronograph capability, so you can reset and restart without first stopping. Lots to love here. Gradient dial, sort of silver gray at the center, almost black at the edge, white gold hands and indices. The chronograph minutes register goes up to 60 minutes, which I like. And then we have a pointer style date indicator. The dial is beautifully balanced. We'll throw the watch on the wrist. It looks good, it feels good. It's thinner than you would expect for all that goes into the case. It has an anti-magnetic silicone hairspring. It is adjusted in 6 positions and per Patek Philippe is accurate to -3 + 2 seconds per day or better. And of course, we have a column wheel vertical clutch chronograph that looks good and works just as well. You can see Gyromax style free sprung balance beaten away at 8 beats per second. We have a column wheel style mechanism on a movement that is handsomely hand finished and worth the price of admission. Again, if you're going to own just one watch, this is pretty close to the perfect choice. So from a versatile watch to a watch that is undoubtedly a party piece, here we have the Richard Mille RM6001. 50, yes, 50 millimeters in titanium. This is not for the faint of heart or slight of wrist. Now it has a sort of compass rose bezel that can be used in conjunction with the hour hand to find true north or true south, depending on the technique you use and where on the globe you are. The watch has a secondary time zone activated by using a pusher on the case flank, and you can see that right there. They call it UTC, I call it GMT. It doesn't really matter. It is a second time zone in 24-hour format. The watch also features a flyback chronograph, so you reset and restart without first stopping. A nice functional flexibility to have. We have a big date with 2 independent digits, and if you note, we have the big date and then we have the month of the year right here. So like the Sky Dweller from Rolex, this is an annual calendar. And we have 2 features I adore, a chronograph minutes register that goes up to 60 and a chronograph hours register that goes up to 24. Open dial, as you can see, the movement is visible. We have plenty of luminescence. The watch includes a locking system for the chronograph pushers as well as the crown. When the red arrow index is visible, it locks the system so you can't accidentally actuate it. When the green arrow is visible, now I can operate all of those fun features. The movement is made of grade 5 titanium and it is Vacheron based. And you can see right here, it is water resistant to 100 meters, which is rare on RM watches. Now you can see 2 barrels, 55-hour power reserve, and it features a wonderful variable geometry rotor system. So with that variable geometry rotor system, you can actually adjust the winding efficiency of the watch more if you're sedentary like me and you're a desk diver, less if you're very active, and all of this to better suit your needs as well as, under some circumstances, better preserve the winding system. The movement's made of titanium and it's joined to the case using shock absorbers. So not only is this watch water resistant, it is also very, very shock resistant. Throwing the watch on the wrist, it's huge. You need a wrist of, I would say, 18 centimeters circumference or larger to wear this watch. And you can also see, rest assured, it's fitting under no cuffs. But the good news is, it's as rugged as it looks. Water resistant and shock resistant. It features grade 5 titanium with both lighter than steel and more scratch resistant than steel. A nice feature to have. And of course, you get proprietary Richard Mille buckle and integrated vulcanized rubber strap. A really cool piece. You can see there's a little bit of a curvature to the case back. You still need to have that big wrist, but it will sit securely. Okay, jumping straight into a watch that would normally be the final piece on one of my shows. If this watch weren't factory sealed, rest assured this is what would have been our grand finale. This is the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Ultra Thin Perpetual Calendar. It is the 26586 IP, so a combination of platinum and titanium that is only 6.3 millimeters thick. It is the 2019 GPHG Aiguille, or the winner of Best Picture at the Oscars of Watchmaking. It is lovely with a satin blue slate-like dial and a perpetual calendar display with a photorealistic Moonphase. Of course, the bezel is made of platinum. The intermediate links in the bracelet also made of platinum. The watch is 41 millimeters in diameter, and it debuted first as a prototype, the R&D or Research and Development number 2, before it was launched for the 2021 model year as a watch you could actually buy. So because the base movement is only 2.4 millimeters thick and the entire movement is only 2.89 millimeters thick, you realize just how thin that perpetual calendar module had to be in order to work in a watch this slender and to be that thick when you combine base movement and module. And of course, it features the same movement as the Jumbo, or at least the same movement as the 15202 and prior Jumbos, which is the JLC 920 based Audemars Piguet 2120. So a very cool piece, possibly the ultimate modern Royal Oak. Originally known as the R&D2, it is now the Royal Oak Ultra Thin Perpetual Calendar, the 26586 IP in platinum and grade 5 titanium. Now, jumping to another versatile sports watch, we have here what might turn out to be the best version of the Rolex Deepsea Sky Dweller. Now, of course, the watch was redesigned for this year with a few changes. There's a special Rolex Speak trade name for the titanium caseback, which didn't change on the new model, it just gained a name. The new model has a date display that is 8% bigger and a bezel that is supposed to be a little bit thinner. It also loses one of the best features of the watch. This is the 2018 to 2021 version of the Deepsea, which was a big technical and ergonomic upgrade and aesthetic upgrade over the original 2008 watch, but it didn't actually lose any capability. The new reference 136660 actually loses the flip lock dive extension. So you can see here we have a clasp that is Rolex's best, and it has 10 2mm adjustable increments. The idea behind this little trapdoor lock is that you can adjust the sizing and fit while the watch is still on your wrist, as opposed to the subs and the Sky Dweller 43 where you need to take it off to make that adjustment. Here, you're not going to drop the watch in a marine environment by taking it off your wrist and risking loss of your watch. So you get that adjustment system, but you also get flip lock. So between the two of them, you have over 50mm, or for those of us in the old colony, over 2 inches. Now, here's what happened in 2022. This stays, this goes away. You can no longer get the flip lock on the Deepsea. It is gone. You have only this glide lock system. I prefer to have both. Now, jumping over to the lug profile, you can see a big change for 2018 was that the lugs themselves became thinner, and this was done by taking 0.5 millimeter out of each interior face of the lug. So we now have a 22mm end link to the bracelet, so we don't have that pencil-necked disparity between the width of the case and the width of the bracelet as we had before. We also have a shorter lug-to-lug dimension and a shorter end-link to end-link dimension, making the watch easier to wear. Now, the crystal is about 5.9 millimeters thick, so being super thick and part of the structure of the ring lock system, it doesn't have a Cyclops eye magnifier, which I consider addition by subtraction. We have Rolex Chromalite Blue Lume and plenty of it. And we have a ceramic insert within the bezel to resist disfigurement. It is a wonderfully crisp and silky at the same time 120 click diving bezel. Now we have this gradient blue to black to retrace the journey that director James Cameron and Rolex ambassador took in 2012 as he sank to the bottom of the Challenger Deep, the deepest part of the Marianas Trench, and thus the deepest part of the ocean. So his sub was the color of this word Deepsea. His sub was the Deepsea Challenger. It was this kind of signal green color, and of course he descended from the blue of near surface to the abyss. The watch has a 70-hour power reserve. A big upgrade arrived for 2018, caliber 3235. It is the longer power reserve with, among other innovations, Rolex Chronogy. It is water resistant down to 3,900 meters, but wait, there's more. At the factory, Rolex uses a Comex-designed machine to test the watch down to 125% of its rated depth. So not only is it good to 3,900 meters, it is good to quite a bit more than that. And you can see the helium escape valve on the flank of the case. I could wear this, and not as a goof either. While I feel it wears best on a bigger wrist, I could comfortably wear this watch on a 16 centimeter circumference wrist like mine. I could not say that of the 2008 to 2017 Deepsea. Sticking with our sports watch theme, here we have high horology in an unusual form, as Chopard was not traditionally known for sports watches. In 2002, it launched this, the Chopard Louis Chopard Pro One Diver, 42 millimeters in diameter in stainless steel. It's under 13.5 millimeters thick. You can see it has beefy lug profiles with the strap held on by screws and bars. We've got a brand new Chopard factory strap in leather here. We have a matching pin buckle. The watch is 300 meters water resistant. Has one of the best and loudest bezel detents I've ever encountered. The dial is handsome with a couple of different nuances added. And you can see the watch includes several different subsidiary setting modes. We've got our quick set date system. We have our hacking seconds. We have a lovely bifurcation of the lume color, and you can see that the color of the pearl in the bezel matches the indices on the dial, matches the ecru coloration of the stitching in the strap, and the watch has plenty of luminescence by night. Inside, we get Chopard's own, by the way, how much do you love the Francophone compass rose on the reverse side? We have Chopard's own caliber 496. It is a micro-rotor automatic manufacture from the Louis Ulysse Chopard series, 65-hour power reserve, 2 mainspring barrels, and COSC COSC chronometer certified. It is very impressive. Again, the watch is 42 millimeters in diameter, which is a nice size for a sports watch, especially a diver. It's not too big, it's not petite, and as you can see, it wears well on my wrist. It even wears tight enough that with this dress cuff, as I am currently attired, I would have no issues at all wearing this watch. A great value in handmade watchmaking. Okay, you may be saying, enough of these sports watches. Let's see some dress watches. Well, let's see a dress complication right here. From Jaeger-LeCoultre, we have the second generation Master Tourbillon. The first one debuted in 2006 and set new standards for accessibility and precision in tourbillon wristwatches. Well, this is a redesigned model. It has the same 41.5 millimeter size, but the case is much thinner at 12.3 millimeters thick. It also has more slender lugs. The case back is set back to create the impression of a much thinner watch on the wrist, and you can see that the dial has been changed principally around the tourbillon architecture. If you look carefully, you can see here the tourbillon bridge is changed from the original model, which featured a 4-point anchoring for the tourbillon. Here we have one bar, so we have 2-point anchoring here on each side, and then we have all black polish on a continuously rounded upper bridge. So this is all specular finish. You can see the center underneath the tri-spoke is also black polished. The tourbillon cage itself, which is made of titanium, has also changed. It's visibly different. It has a different shape, but the whole tourbillon assembly only weighs 1/3 of a gram. Now it beats away at 4 hertz, which is uncommon on a tourbillon, and it has quite a few features designed to improve chronometry, including a free-sprung architecture, 6-position adjustment, and an overcoil hairspring. The last of those almost never used on JLC watches. Now, we can also see on the reverse side, it's still caliber 978, which won first prize at the first Concours de Chronométrie, or competitive timing test, to be held in Switzerland since the 70s, and its annualized deviation during the test was only 47 seconds a year if extrapolated. Remember, a chronometer can lose 4 seconds and gain 6 seconds per day. So 22 karat winding mass, automatic winding, ceramic bearings, unidirectional action, 48-hour power reserve, and the watch has a GMT function. So you see how I'm able to adjust the local time independently. Now we've got this little pointer style date, and note, it is a clever piece. JLC uses a special cam that prevents the blocking of the tourbillon. So over the course of the night between the 15th and the 16th, that index, the pointer date, will jump all the way across the tourbillon so as not to obscure your view. Now you can see there is a secondary time zone at the top with day-night demarcated by different guilloches, and that is your second time zone. So this watch has a tourbillon, a jumping date, and a second time zone. Also, frankly, for an ornate rose gold dress watch, it is quite well loomed, and surprisingly so in that regard. It's also 50 meters water resistant. JLC internally times its tourbillon watches to run about 1 second a day. So this is not just a pretty tourbillon. It is true to the original mission of chronometry that Abraham Louis Breguet set out when he first designed the tourbillon regulator in the late 18th century. Now, the watch you're about to see next debuted back in 2004, and it was made through 2010. A 38 millimeters wide by about 50.8 millimeters lug to lug and about 11.8 millimeters thick. This is the Patek Philippe Gondolo annual calendar, the 5135R. Now, through about 2009, these would have been made with the Geneva hallmark on the movement, and that's exactly what we have right here. So now you're looking at one of the examples made from 2004 to mid-2009 when you see the Poisson de Genève on the movement. Now, of course, this watch does fit that assumption as it was retailed in 2006. The timepiece features the design that was coined back in 2002 with the rarely seen 5033 annual calendar minute repeater. So this looks exactly like that. You have a day, date, month American style calendar in aperture form, which I find a lot easier to read than a typical Patek pointer style calendar. And also, quite frankly, the annual calendar is one of those quintessentially Patek innovations, since in 1996 they patented the first ever annual calendar, which requires only one jump, manually applied, when February turns to March. Now on the reverse side, we have caliber 324, free sprung, unidirectional automatic winding, 45-hour power reserve, Geneva hallmark finish. Much to love. It is a big watch, though. I really think you need a wrist at least as large as mine to wear this well. Think of it as more of a 43 or 44 millimeter round watch, and you get the idea about how it wears. It doesn't wear thick, but it wears massive, and it wears broad. Speaking of oversized dress watches, this was the first, or at least its family was first, as in 1939, IWC created the Portugieser. Now, whether you call it Portuguese or you use the German that is the native language in Schaffhausen and you call it the Portugieser, we are referring to the same watch designed as a custom commission for the Portuguese importers of International Watch Company. At the time, they wanted a wristwatch that was as accurate as a pocket watch, which were always inherently more accurate than wristwatches back then. Well, the only way to achieve this goal was to create, from scratch, an oversized wristwatch case and then put a pocket watch movement inside. And so they did, and the reference 325 Portugieser entered into legend. Now today, it is still an oversized dress watch. Time has caught up with the idea of a large dress watch. Here we have 42.3 millimeters in steel. This is the 5001 09. It's a model that came out in 2004. It features a matte black dial that includes a 7-day power reserve indicator, constant seconds, leaf-style hands, Arabic-style numerals, a little date. We've got both hacking seconds and a quick-set date mechanism. The watch can be manually wound if you want to see the power reserve moving, though it's an automatic winder with a partially ceramic Albert Peloton pawl-based winding system. There is a gold medallion inside the rotor, one big mainspring barrel giving you those 7 days of power reserve, 168 hours. We have a balance that beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It is both free-sprung and equipped with an overcoil hairspring, and it's adjusted in 5 positions again. That is a very upscale level of adjustment. This movement originally launched as the reference 5000 in the year 2000. It's now the 51011, the 50,000 series, with a higher beat rate and a different balance architecture for this era of IWC Portugieser 7 days. And the movement remains over 37 millimeters in diameter, so it is truly a sight on the wrist, the world's largest automatic movement in series production, in a large and handsome dress watch that's anything but bashful, but also manages to be large and in charge with good manners. It's not what you would call brash. It's sophisticated and it's strong. And it's equipped with a deployant clasp, a single fold, that is satinated and polished externally, and then internally polished and media blasted. Now, if you're interested in owning a classically great model, but you're on a budget, a Breitling is always a great option. Even compared to the aftermarket prices of used Omega models, Breitling is favorable. The brand is also on the rise and making a bit of a recovery, so it's good to be on the rising tide that lifts all boats, and that includes this 2014 model, the Chronomat 44 30th anniversary. So what you've got here is a tribute to the Frecce Tricolore. You can see the aeronautical exhibition aircraft of the Italian military demonstration squadron that helped to develop the 1983 and 1984 Chronomat series, which was the Schneider family's comeback watch for Breitling. While the Chronomat series dates back to the early 1940s when it was a chronograph with an early version of Breitling's circular slide rule calculator, in the Schneider family era following the 1978 Breitling bankruptcy, the Chronomat became a very different kind of watch. Still a chronograph, yes, but now with a unidirectional rotating dive-style bezel, a massive case featuring an onion-like crown, rider tabs on the bezel for easy gripping, and the timepiece is robust with 200-meter water resistance, a chronometer certification. You can see captive bezel construction, so the bezel's held on by these little screws. They're not ornamental. It's a much more rugged system than the snap-on, snap-off bezel used by, for example, Rolex and Omega. Now, there's plenty of lume here. The airborne nomenclature on this watch refers to the sort of Fotina ecru lume color, designed to give a little bit of a vintage look, as the original 1983 and 1984 Chronomats today with their tritium lume would look like this, albeit smaller. You can see there's plenty of luminescence, including on the bezel pearl. So the watch is ostensibly a pilot's watch, but it can be used as a dive watch. It's chronometer certified, and this is important, it has Breitling's B01 movement inside. Not only is it a chronometer, but it's a 70-hour power reserve with hacking seconds, a quick set date, and a vertical clutch and a column wheel tandem. So again, watches work best when you wind them. When this watch is in operation, you have a column wheel function selector. you have a vertical clutch coupling system. The combination of the two means you have a very crisp actuation with the column wheel and a very smooth engagement with the vertical clutch. You can hear and feel the column wheel engaging. You could see that there's no jump to the seconds hand because there's no play in a vertical clutch. And if you like to just leave your chrono running, you can easily do so with a vertical clutch because it doesn't create any additional wear and tear within the movement. This is a very rugged watch, a substantial watch, though not without grace, as the case shape is handsome. We'll throw it on my wrist of 16 centimeters circumference, and once again, you can see you probably need a wrist of at least my size or larger to wear this, but I would be happy to wear this watch. It would not be too big, and it's an aggressive sporting style, but big is the look here. It's supposed to look a little bit oversized. That said, if your wrist is any smaller than mine, you probably want to look for something a bit more compact. I guess this qualifies, but at 43 millimeters in rose gold, the Jules Audemars perpetual calendar equation of time is a very different proposition. Now, the equation of time does a couple of different things. First of all, it tells you the difference between true time and mean time. So true time, for example, in true solar time, noon is the time when the sun is directly overhead. But within any given time zone, because you need an average for a large geographic area, you have to take all of the times within that zone and average them together to get one number, which means depending on where you are, east or west in your time zone, when the sun is directly overhead, that is true solar noon, you might not be looking at your clock mean noon or average noon. And so over the course of a year, this disparity generally varies between negative 15 minutes and positive 15 minutes. And then there are 4 times a year when the number is 0. Well, we have that right here, but we also have something that is specific to Los Angeles. We have an equation of sunrise and sunset, which will tell you when these two milestones each day will arrive. And this is mechanically programmed. So you could see this is going to tell you sunrise and sunset for LA. It also has a perpetual calendar system. You can see the leap year phase, the month, the moon phase, the date, and the day. And the watch has both on a black guilloche dial with rose gold hands as well as Roman numerals. On the case back, you can see the base is Audemars Piguet 2120. This is the same base movement that was in that Royal Oak ultra-thin perpetual calendar earlier, but you can see this is an older and more ornate finishing of it, as we have both a skeletonized and freehand engraved rotor. So this is no longer offered on most AP watches. It's a sign of a bygone era, and this movement, which by the way is not just finished in-house by AP, but made in-house by AP, is becoming vanishingly rare in the AP catalogs. It's no longer included in most variants of the Royal Oak that used to use it, the jumbos. You can see the beveling is actually quite a bit more ornate and hand-finished than the beveling you'll get in mass-produced Audemars Piguet watches. Now, the equation of time, as well as the perpetual calendar, those should be good just about everywhere. They're not as proximate as the Los Angeles sunrise and sunset. That said, AP can always recam and reprogram the watch for a price, so if you really wanted, you could get the ring changed and the cam changed. That said, I suggest you leave it as the factory made it. Now in rose gold, it is 43 millimeters in diameter and quite flat. Flat because of that ultra-thin base automatic movement. It's a 40-hour power reserve. The watch is suitable for a wrist as small as about 15 centimeters circumference, and again, no problem fitting underneath the cuff. If you want a dress watch that is suitable for a smaller wrist, I recommend this. 39 millimeters in steel. This is the Master ultra-thin Moonphase from JLC. Taking a quick look at the dial, you can see it is a blue metallic sunburst that is quite fetching, with applique faceted polished dart style indices and faceted Dauphine hands. We have a Moonphase with a pointer date coaxial. The case is 39 millimeters and quite slim. And then we have a JLC automatic winding base. This is caliber 925, a combination of hand finishing and machine finishing. It's considered to be an upscale movement. Very thin, very accurate, and nicely decorated. There are some hand-crafted elements here, and there are some traditional craft elements here, and my favorite being the actual fire-blued or kiln-blued screws. The watch includes a full deployant clasp, and As you can see, we have pull-tab spring bars. And then we have a little push-button system. So what's the point of a pull-tab spring bar to remove the strap without a tool if the strap is stuck to the clasp? Well, JLC found a way out of that. This little push-button allows you to remove the clasp from the strap. So if you want to swap straps, you remove the watch, you remove the clasp, you swap in your new strap, you fit it, and you go. And you can do all of this without a watchmaker's assistance. Throwing it on the wrist, the timepiece is very compact, super thin, or I should say ultra thin, to use the factory's terminology. This would be suitable on a wrist as small as 13 centimeters in circumference, and thus it is a unisex option. Now, while the Nautilus 5990 that you saw might be the most versatile watch in the Patek collection, it is not necessarily the best value in steel high horology sports watches. I would still say that the second generation Vacheron Overseas is that. So this is the second generation Overseas chronograph, 42 millimeters in steel. That watch was made from 2004 to 2015, but the blue lacquer dial version in steel that you see here was only made from 2013 to 2015. So these are highly sought and quite uncommon. The watch is only 12.6 millimeters thick, which surprises me to this day, and about 50 millimeters from lug to lug, but with a somewhat sloped set of lugs, so it wears well on a smaller wrist. It's powered by a Philippe Piguet integrated automatic high horology chronograph caliber that's only 5.5 millimeters thick. The movement has automatic winding, 5-position adjustment, hand finishing, a 40-hour power reserve, a vertical clutch, a column wheel, and double-digit date, a grand date, with a quick set. Now, the watch features a big eye style minutes register. You can see the minutes display is bigger than the chrono hours, and that's designed to make it easier to read. Hands, logo, and indices are white gold, and you can see there is plenty of superluminova. The watch is surprisingly robust for a Holy Trinity sports watch, as it combines 150 meter water resistance with 25,000 ampere per meter anti-magnetism. Remember, the definition of ISO 764. The 764 ISO dictates that an anti-magnetic watch must have 4,800 ampere per meter anti-magnetism, so this has 25,000. Now, the ship on the back, it's the Italian naval training vessel Amerigo Vespucci, which has been said to be the most beautiful full-rigged ship still on the high seas. And you can see you have several different finishes on this case back. A soft iron inner cage over the movement. That's why there is not a display case back. And once again, the watch just fits a treat, looks great. There's a rubber blue strap that you can order from Vacheron boutiques, so you can get this watch set for summer of 2022. We have one candidate from Lange for your dress watch dollars and consideration. This, of course, is the Lange 1 Moonphase. So the watch itself is absolutely gorgeous. From the buckle down to the case, Platinum 950, ultra white. So it's platinum on the outside, and then the dial is made of sterling silver with white gold indices, numerals, hands, and the frame for the date. Of course, the watch features both hacking seconds and a quick set date powered by a pusher, and the pusher feel is as good as a fine column wheel chronograph. It's a real tactile pleasure. I love this special typeface, serif and curlicue intensive, that Lange created for the watch. Surprisingly, for a dress watch, the timepiece is fairly well loomed. Note not just the time, but the power reserve indicator loomed here. Lange Moonphases are special. First, they are always comprised of gold. So they're not made of brass, they're made of gold. Here, white gold. Second, they use the 135-tooth driving wheel, which is typically used on perpetual calendars. That means you'll need to adjust the Moonphase once every 122 years rather than the usual 2 years and 7 months. Now, the watch is gorgeous, but it's more so on the reverse side. You can see it's the twin-barrel Lange 1 movement modified to include the Moonphase. 3-day power reserve, manually wound. We can see that there's black polish on the escape wheel cover, the case clamp screws, and the swan's neck fine adjustment mechanism. The watch, as you can see, is free-sprung. It does feature a freehand engraved, let's see how close we can get, a freehand engraved balance cock. We have glasuta stripes across a bridge that is a 3/4 style inspired by pocket watches. Note we have both polished and blued screws. Everything has a golden hue because the bridges and the plates are made of German silver or nickel, copper, and zinc, with copper being what gives it that golden hue. We have mirrored anglage and then engine turning on the base plate. It is the full package. That said, since we are talking about sports watches, I've got a great one right here. From a Lange und Söhne, we have the Odysseus Datomatic. The watch is 40.5 millimeters in diameter, 120 meters water resistant. It features plenty of luminescence. It has a 50-hour power reserve and hidden pusher adjusters for the calendar system. They're built into the wing of the watch. Now you can see there is a push-button slider that is built into the clasp. So you have the ability to move it in and out. It has about 1 centimeter of incremental adjustment. You can also see that every link in the bracelet and on both sides is removable for fine sizing. The movement is gorgeous, the case is beautifully finished, and the dial is very different. A layered blue balanced design and an easy watch to wear, though 40.5 millimeters with a sizable bit of shoulder, so it does have a little bit of end link extension beyond the lugs. The watch wears well and comfortably and super slick, flat enough to fit underneath the cuff. Yes, it's dressy, but no, it's not a dress watch. It's a little bit more formal, stolid, Teutonic, and reserved than something like a Royal Oak Offshore or the 42.2 millimeter Aquanaut Chrono, but this is definitely in the genre of the integrated bracelet steel sports watch, but it doesn't look like a Nautilus or a Royal Oak, and I actually love it for that. So while we can debate the width of the bracelet versus the width of the case versus the width of the lugs, on the wrist, the detailing is spectacular, the quality is undeniable, and the charisma is massive. You can even see, and I'll do my best to show you this, on the reverse of the case, the movement is beautiful. That said, the grand finale was always going to be this de Bethune DB28 GS Grand Bleu. We may as well cut to the chase. This is a diver by de Bethune. Now, it does have Black Badger Luminova. So it's not Luminova, so to speak, but this is a luminescent material created by James Thompson and Black Badger for de Bethune. So the watch has a loomed bezel, 3 loomed hands, and you can even see it is internally loomed, as there is an internal chapter ring that rings the movement that is fully luminescent. So let's take it up a notch. Now we activate the watch's pièce de résistance, a dynamo with a minute repeater style governor powered by the barrels, driving 4 LEDs. Now you can see how the bezel is backlit. You will have no trouble gauging your timing in the dark, at night, or in a dive. Jumping back to the land of the light. Let there be light. And it is light. 44 millimeters in grade 5 titanium and quite slender at only 13 millimeters thick. It has variable geometry floating lugs. The case has been engraved by reductive technique with the company's signature microlight. In grade 5 titanium, it is hypoallergenic, lighter than steel, and more scratch resistant. We have the unidirectional rotating bezel. We have microlight on the titanium bridge caps, and you can see that we also have mirrored anglage as well as a raised and polished channel on the edge of each bridge. We have a black polished bridge with 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs, a proprietary system that is patented. We have the company's own 2-element hand-formed hairspring, which is oblong and dog-legged, so it's 2 different hairsprings shaped by hand and clamped together to be flat like a flat hairspring and shock resistant, but also breathe concentrically like an overcoil. We have a titanium balance wheel with white gold mass as outboard, one of at least 8 different balance designs patented by Denis Flageolet, the watchmaking genius of de Bethune. And you can see we have fired blued hands using a process the company created to fire blue titanium. Now we also have power reserve indicator hiding off to the side. The watch has 2 barrels, self-adjusting, so you cannot accidentally overwind this manual wind watch. 5 days of power reserve. There's a small power reserve on the front, and then there is a large power reserve mechanism visible on the reverse side of the case. Again, more microlight engraving as well as satination and beveling. In terms of dive watches, this is as good as it gets. Possibly the ultimate high horology diver from the ultimate high horology independent brand. They've made fewer than 3,000 watches since 2002, and they only make about 200 to 220 a year, so you're not going to see another one. Reach out to tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.